Hi everyone, welcome to another video. I'm Laurent Maca. Today I'm going to do a review of not one but two books because I thought why not do two? I have read both and I have lots of opinions on both, so why not join them? Those two books are Emma by Jane Austen and Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Yes, this copy is very battered. I'll tell you why later because I'm going to start with Emma. Now, to be honest, this is going to be more a rant than a review because I'm not neutral about these books, especially the characters rile me up completely. But first let's talk about what this book is about. Emma is about Emma, who lives in Britain during the Regency era in the countryside with her father. She is rich, beautiful, healthy, smart, and very social. And she puts her nose into other people's business, especially their love lives, because she fancies herself this awesome matchmaker, which she isn't. Come to that later. Her main victim is Harriet Smith, who at the time that Emma meets her is courted by Robert Martin, but Emma convinces Harriet that Robert Martin is not good enough for her, and that Mr. Elton, who is good enough, is eventually going to propose. And we get to read about how that turns out. Some other characters also join the party and get to experience Emma's wonderful personality, and those are Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill. Other important characters are Mr. Woodhouse, Emma's father, and Mr. Knightley, who is a family friend and is actually the brother of Emma's brother-in-law through her sister. Now, I know this book is supposed to be comical and is supposed to be a criticism of the fact that these women have nothing else to do because they have no other task than to be sociable and find a husband. But I can't keep that in mind when I read it. I just get completely irritated by these characters, which I'm now going to talk about. The character that most people agree upon not liking is Frank Churchill. He is manipulative and obnoxious and a complete idiot, and you'll meet him when you read this. Another character that I had trouble with was Jane Fairfax. I want to grab her by the shoulders and shake her up. She's in a difficult position, but she doesn't try to get out of it in any way. She doesn't show herself. She doesn't tell her aunt to shut up, for example. I want her to have a voice. Another character that's not that important to the story, but that was still frustrating, was Emma's father, Mr. Woodhouse. He's a hypochondriac and completely paranoid, and he just makes everything difficult, and he's the spectator to what happens, but he's just put there so that Jane Austen can explain stuff to him to ensure that we get it. Did not like him either. Then we've got Harriet. Harriet is not the smartest, which is fine, but she also has very little backbone, and she's just so thankful for Emma coming into her life and taking her under her wing that she completely loses sight of herself, and she doesn't see that she doesn't get her way in the end. And I understand that to a certain extent. I mean, when I was 14, I would not be myself to be friends with people, but it is still very irritating to see someone else having that, especially because this person is not 14. She's a grown woman. Last but not least, we have Emma, the queen of the party, who just doesn't see, and even when she does, she doesn't change her ways. She doesn't see that her matchmaking isn't working and that she's hurting people around her. She doesn't see that she's doing her matchmaking for herself and not for the others. And that was most visible, of course, in her relationship with Harriet, because she decides to take Harriet under her wing and elevate her circumstances, which in itself is kind. But she doesn't look at things from the perspective of Harriet, which means that she doesn't listen, she doesn't even ask what Harriet wants. And I also did not like at all that she just assumes that she is better than Harriet. That, oh, well, Harriet, poor girl, she doesn't have much conversation. That's okay. I will teach her to become a better conversationalist. maybe Harriet has her own worths that you don't have. You can be different and you don't have, and that doesn't mean that one is better than the other. Whilst they're presenting themselves as being friends, they actually have more of a master-student, I think, type of relationship. Just because Emma puts herself above Harriet, and she is when you see it social classes, but that doesn't mean that you're better. And that, I mean, of course, it's the times and stuff, but I found it so infuriating. I also found Emma really judgmental of people, which again, she had nothing else to do, and obviously I'm judging her, so I'm not allowed to judge her for being judgmental, but still, all of these things made me not like her at all and getting completely riled up. There is one character that was okay, that was rational, that was completely fine, and that is Mr. Knightley. He's the only one that tells Emma, what are you doing? Unfortunately, near the end of the book, Mr. Knightley falls in love with one of the idiots of the book, and then I lost my respect for him. Now, obviously, I have a love-to-hate type of relationship with this story and these characters and the book in general. I mean, it was an enjoyable read because I kind of liked getting completely riled up about all these idiots. So I should say that that is well done. There's a movie that recently came out. I'm not going to watch it because I don't think I will sleep after having watched it because I will be too irritated. But I would love to hear what you think about this book if you've read it, because I know not everybody has this type of relationship to it. I know people that really like this book, and I don't like it. I enjoyed the experience of getting all of these emotions. Because I now thought of these characters again, I'm feeling myself being a bit frustrated, so I'm going to grab a cup of tea first, and then I'm going to start my review of Anna Karenina. That's better. Like I said, Anna Karenina. Let's talk about the obvious first. Yes, my copy is completely battered. A few years ago, my rabbits managed to get through the construction I had made to prevent them from growing in certain areas of the house. This was in the house I previously lived in. And obviously they liked Anna Karenina. They enjoyed it in their own special little way. You can imagine I cried when I found this. There are other books that they attacked, but this one is by far the one that got the worst of it. The other ones just got the nibbles like these. But yeah, Anna Karenina. It is by Leo Tolstoy, and I was thinking when I finished it, hey, Leo is not a very Russian name. Googled it, yes, he's called Lev. Why don't we say Lev Tolstoy? I have no idea. You can't see it, but I actually read this in French, by the way. Now, for those of you who don't know, there are two storylines in Anna Karenina. No, it's not Anna and Karenina. I still don't really understand why the names of one of the two main characters is on the title and not also the other one. But we follow Anna Karenina on the one hand and Konstantin Levin on the other. Now, first I'm going to give you a short introduction to both of the storylines and tell you a bit more about what I thought of it. And I will at one point go into spoilery territory, but I will tell you beforehand so that if you don't know and you want to find out on your own terms, you can just stop the video at that moment. I'm going to start talking to you about the main storylines. We have on the one hand Anna Karenina, her husband, Mr. Karenin, and Vronsky. And on the other hand, we have Levin and Kitty, and both of these groups are linked through the Oblonsky family because Stiva is Anna's brother and Stiva is married to Dolly, who is Kitty's sister. And the story starts out when Stiva and Dolly have marital problems and Stiva asks his sister Anna to come to Moscow. She lives in St. Petersburg to help save his marriage. And in the same 2 days, I think it is, Levin comes to Moscow because he wants to ask Kitty to marry him. But Kitty is at that time being courted by Vronsky, and she thinks she's going to be proposed to by Vronsky, so she says no to Levin. Unfortunately, Levin has just a few hours before met Anna and fallen in love with her, and decides to go away from Moscow and go to St. Petersburg to pursue her, which he does very successfully, as Anna is also in love with him. And that is where the two strands separate directly, and then we see both stories continue. So on the one hand, we have the Kitty and Levin. Kitty is completely crushed that Vronsky does not propose to her, and she is, oh, these were awful times, but in order to cope with that, the doctor sends her on holiday. And Levin goes back to his house in the countryside to deal with his crushed heart, and he tries to find solace in his work and trying to make sure that the lands that he is a proprietor of are farmed correctly. And in order to do that, he also tries to see what he can do for the workers, because he understands that if the workers are doing well, the lands are going to do well. And on the other hand, we have Anna Karenina and Vronsky, who start their affair. First behind the back of Anna's husband. By the way, I should have said Anna and her husband have a son who is, I think, 7 or 8 years old, and she absolutely loves his son, and that also a problem because at one point her and her husband start having difficulties, and the question of the divorce comes up, but if that happens, she won't be able to see her son anymore. So that also plays a role. There is, obviously, this book is pretty big. There is a lot happening. I am, in this non-spoilery part, not going to tell you any more about that. The fact that this book is big really plays in its favor, because we meet all of these characters, but we get to live with them for a longer period of time, and we get to see what happens in their heads. It's like a soap opera that goes on just for long enough. I mean, normally in a soap opera, the first season is great and you've got a bit of drama going on, and then at one point you see that it's only continued because they know that people are watching, but the quality is really going down, down, down. And with this, Lev Tolstoy just stopped it when he wanted to stop it, which was when the story came to a natural end. And so the quality remains the same throughout. And you don't really get bored of them, at least I didn't. Now, writing-wise, there's one thing that I enjoyed a little less, and that is that there are, I think, 1 or 2 tangents in which Tolstoy talks about politics, for example, that you really see that he's trying to include it in his commentary on the Russian society, but they aren't woven into the story very well. And he also does that a little bit with agriculture. He talks through Levin about how we could deal with workers, with agricultural workers, but that is woven into the story, it's woven into the character, and therefore I appreciated that a lot more. I wish he would have done that as well with the politics part. Now, just like with my review of Emma, I'm going to talk shortly about the characters. For example, I did not get on with Anna. I find her kind of obnoxious and not likable. And Vronsky as well, he's very shallow and he just lets himself get completely carried away by these passions and therefore doesn't think of, for example, his career. And he has this likable side. He decides, for example, that he does not to split the brother, then he and his brother inherit from his father evenly because his brother has a wife. Therefore he finds, well, I'm a bachelor. You guys need a bit more now, so we don't have to split it 50-50. That was likable. And he put some money into making a hospital. So he has some good sides. But when he finds a passion, he doesn't stick to it. So I had trouble with him. And then we've got Kitty, who she's kind of shallow as well. I mean, she improves at least, but she starts out as this little princess, and but she has a good heart, and she turns out that she's not this little city brat. And then we've got Levin. Levin is actually very likable, but Levin is actually Tolstoy in the book. They've even share the name. Tolstoy called him Levin as a parallel to Lev, his own name. And apparently people at the time that read the book like, hey, but you're Levin. You guys are the same. You have the same philosophy. And Levin you really see that he has this good heart. He's a bit grubby, but he really wants to do good, and that makes him likable. I'm now going to start with the spoilery part of the review because I want to discuss Anna and Levin side by side and why they're both in the same book without their stories influencing one another. So if you don't want to know what's going to happen, this is your chance to go away. Bye. So now that it's only us who know what is going to happen, my theory is that the reason that they are both in the same book, without their stories actually influencing each other, except for right at the very beginning when Vronsky puts Kitty aside to pursue Anna, is that they are complete opposites. My theory is that Anna starts out at the top. She has all of these friends and she's at the top of society. She's loved by everyone, and she slowly declines because society doesn't accept her relationship with Vronsky and the fact that she has a child with him, and she has to flee when she comes back. Nobody wants to have anything to do with her. So she's isolated more and more, and at the same time, she starts to become less and less rational and more emotional. At the beginning, she doesn't want Vronsky to be with her, but at the end, she's completely dependent of him, and she gets completely paranoid every time that he leaves, thinking that he is with another woman, and starts taking opium and stuff, and in the end, decides to throw herself under a train. And on the other hand, we have Levin, who starts off really bad. I mean, he just got rejected by the woman of his dreams, and he is not sociable. People don't agree with his opinions on things. He has little friends. He's short-tempered. He's focused a lot on himself, but throughout the story, he starts to grow. First through his agricultural thoughts and thinking about the workers on his land, and then when he does find love with Kitty, he starts also to develop these social skills, and he's interested more and more in what happens around him. So for example, meaning that he goes to a politics meeting thing that I didn't really understand, but who cares? And at the end, he's completely happy, and he has all of these people in his farm, and he has discussion with them, and they also seem to like him. And this contrast between the two characters is even more obvious, I think, in the last section. There's a short sentence that says about Levin is that his life was at some points really difficult, but he doesn't commit suicide and he continues to live. And this is said after Anna Karenina has died. So I thought that was very well done, how they both have these completely different and opposite paths. Now, about Levin, I was wondering, though, I was thinking about the fact that he's a good man, but he's kind of boring. I mean, Anna Karenina, she's very flawed, not necessarily likable, but it's fascinating to read her story. And Levin, he's a good man, and he makes right decisions, but that does make his story boring, especially in contrast. So I was wondering whether all good men are boring, and I haven't thought of this very well yet, or thought of any good examples, but I was wondering what you think of this question, and I will try to come back to it later when I've thought about it a bit more. After having read this, by the way, I saw the movie of 2012 with Keira Knightley, and whilst I did not like that production at all because it was very theater-like and they had weird transition between the scenes, it was great to see the whole thing unravel just in about 2 hours' time, because it made me see all of the foreshadowing that happens and the symmetry with Anna meeting Vronsky at a train station and then her going to her death also at a train station, and also all of the times that she says that you are killing me and oh, you're a murderer, or for example the part where Vronsky, you've got the races and he's completely in love with his horse, but because of his actions the horse is completely broken and therefore must die. Of course, I did not notice at all when I was reading, because I had no idea what was coming, and I'm usually not very perceptive of those things. But I thought it was fascinating. Even with Levin, there was a thing like that where when he's just rejected by Kitty, he walks away, and then there's this scene where he walks in the background, and in the forefront you've got this knife flying, and he looks at the knife. And he continued. I was really appreciating all of those things back to back. All in all, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was wonderful that it was so long, and I'm really looking forward to reading some more long books where you get to stay with the characters for so long. I love Tolstoy, and I'm looking forward to picking up War and Peace in a long while, because having already read also the Brothers Karamazov, I think 3 Russian mastodons in half a year might be a bit much. But I would love to hear what your thoughts are on Anna Karenina and also on Emma, though I realize that only the people that have also read or seen Anna Karenina are still here. I will see you in another video. Bye!